So thank you so much for everyone coming today. I see a lot of familiar faces and also a lot of new faces. You guys really support our company and you guys help us understand why we're doing this and that our company has value to the greater cause, if you will. Also, I would like to say thank you to all our tutors for taking time out of their days to come and share this experience with you all. A lot of them are on vacation right now, so thank you for taking time out of your relaxation to come be with us. So why are we here today? I think that's the question as what you're all thinking about. So I know it says how I got into my university, but I think more so than that, it's not only about getting to university, but also understanding how to find your own passion and how this is going to drive you to your future and whatever you plan to do in life. I never thought I would say this, but I have an antidote for the young people here. I don't feel that old myself. I'm actually only 32, but compared to you guys, I feel very old. You guys are given a lot of information and a lot of power. When I grew up, my father had all the encyclopedia books from A to Z. And during my free time, I would go into his room and start reading the encyclopedia. But nowadays, you kids have the computer, have your smartphone with you. And whenever you guys want information, you guys can find it very easily. Now, what does that mean? It means that you're given a lot of power. It means that you're given a lot of information. It's like, you're almost like Superman, if you will, where you're given a lot of power, but it will come with a lot of responsibility. And with all this power, the competition around the world is also going to grow. A lot of kids make the mistake of thinking that I'm competing with my schoolmate from HKIS, GSIS, or CIS, or CDNIS, or wherever. But you're not actually competing. You're competing with the greater world. I know everyone is here today because everyone wants to excel and also do well in their future. But yeah, so with that being said, really listen in onto our tutors today about what they have to say about their passion, because they've all been able to achieve quite a bit in their lives, and it's because they follow their passion. This is something that's very important for everyone for the younger generation to understand, that it's not your parents' responsibility to help you find the passion, but it is your own responsibility to find your passion and to follow through with it. With that also being said, how do you find passion and how do you create it? So before mass education, I was working at JP Morgan, and I had a lot of different bosses, some really good bosses and not so great bosses. But regardless, I learned a lot from all these bosses. I had one boss in particular who I hold in high regards. He used to push me out and make me speak in the morning meetings where there's hundreds of people attending. And I was an analyst, I think a first-year analyst, and I was like, go fly a kite. No, if I had to do this myself, I would say, go fly a kite, because it's very nerve-wracking. Even nowadays, I still get nervous when I do public speaking. But it helped me train how to become more professional. And I also observed a lot of his characteristics and observed how he was at the workplace. And it helped me so much to grow fundamentally. It's even more so than what I learned at NYU. So having a mentor or having someone that you look up to is extremely important. Because as smart as we can be, we are following history. We are following onto other people's footsteps. And now I was pretty lucky. I was born with an older brother who was 11 years older than me, and an older sister as well. They both served great mentors to me. And my mom got a lot of comments saying that, Alex is pretty mature, which I didn't think so, but regardless, it was very nice. So with that being said, today we're launching our mentorship program. Now, to tell you, it's pretty simple, but we have, for example, this case, where there's a student in China who needed help to apply for UCL law application and interview. We paired them up with one of our mass tutor mentors, who also attended UCL, who is currently attending UCL, and within 4 sessions and paying around 2,000 Hong Kong dollars, she was able to get all the information she needed. And this is because the tutor has been there and done that. Now, versus, you have a college consultant, which could charge anywhere north of 200,000 Hong Kong dollars, and might not have the similar experience, because they may have a master's, may have a PhD, and they may have gone to 3 different schools, but they may not have been to the same school. With our platform at Mass Education, we can help you connect you with the most relevant people. I think this is the power of what we're trying to do, and we can do it at almost 1% of the actual cost. So it's food for thought. Wherever we, to bring that to a point, we have over 70 universities represented on our platform, across from Hong Kong, Canada, UK, US, all over the world. So wherever you, even France. So wherever you want to go, we can try to help you find the most relevant person to help you guide you to there. Currently, we cover 27 AP subjects with our tutors, and we cover 23 IB subjects, which we recently added. So I do see a lot of new IB people in the room today, and I'm very happy to have you all here today. Okay. Oh, we've also recently added a whole bunch of master tutors. There's a whole slew of them here, but we actually even have more. Some that are not listed on our website due to certain reasons. But again, if you need a master tutor, need that extra drive to do well in your courses, you can always look up one of these master tutors to help you. And again, your support means so much to us. With our 2 years under the belt, we actually have students from all over the world. And while Hong Kong is #1 for us, but we still do have a broad breadth of having Taiwan, Singapore, India, even Brazil, even Sochi, Russia. So it's pretty interesting. And this brings home to one point in that you're not just competing with people in Hong Kong, you're competing with people globally. They're all studying the APs and the IBs. So with that being said, today I'm going to talk a little bit about our speakers. Just now we had a few video message speakers. Again, a lot of our tutors are back in school, so we pre-recorded some. Adia, who's currently attending Imperial College. Daniel, who also went to CDNIs and currently attending Northwestern. And also a new addition, Mr. Peter Hardman, who actually taught math when I was at HKIS. The next we have dial-in speakers, which is Quan Long from King's College, Henry Lui from UCL, and also Yash, who's from Harvard. They're actually online now, so we're going to jump straight into that conversation. And of course, the next panelist, which I'll introduce later. Oh, and lastly, we do have our mentoring services up, so if you guys want to learn more about it, do visit our website, and also SAT and ACT exam prep. Hey guys, can you take yourselves off mute?
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah.
So, hey Quan Long, hey Henry, hey Yash. Can you guys give us a brief introduction of yourselves first? Yash, you want to go first?
Sure. So hi, I'm Yash. I graduated from HKIS in 2017. I'm currently a freshman at Harvard College. Planning to study math, economics, and statistics in some combination. Not quite figured out how. I'm mainly interested in economics though. And I'm really, really glad to be here through Skype, I guess, talking all.
Henry?
Hi, so I graduated from Shaoxing College and USF School in May 2017. Currently, I'm doing a dual degree in law between UCL and Hong Kong U, which will ultimately allow me to qualify with both the UK and Hong Kong without doing an additional conversion course. So at maths, I offer UK admissions guidance, as well as tutoring in IB English literature, economics and history.
And Quan Long?
Hi, I'm Quan Long. I graduated HKIS 2016, and I'm currently in King's College London, studying biomedical engineering.
Great, thank you so much. So, I'm just going to throw out some random questions to each one of you. Yash, maybe we'll start with you since you need to head out soon. Actually, how's India right now?
Good, good. It's quite cold, but I'm
It's
enjoying it.
cold, okay, interesting. So, in high school, you took 14 APs, and you got 5s in all of them. How did you manage that workload?
So it was quite a bit, but maybe not as much as it sounds like. I did take some courses that offered 2 APs. For example, if you take AP Econ, you get to take macro and micro. Same thing with AP Physics. It was a lot of work, but I think they were all courses that I was really interested in, and I had really good teachers for all those classes, as well as some help from past students from the Math and Science Tutoring Center and the Humanities Tutoring Center at school. And I think, it was an enjoyable experience. It was a lot of courses, but I enjoyed all of them, and I do it the same way again if I could.
Would you recommend it to other people?
I think it really depends on what your interests are. I don't think you should just try and take as many APs as possible for the sake of it. Because really, there's limited benefit. I mean, I've talked to a lot of my friends at Harvard who took just like 6 or 7 APs and did just fine. So I think there's really like a diminishing return to taking APs, and you should only take as many as you think you can do well in. You shouldn't just force yourself to do APs for the sake of it. So I recommend people who have a wide range of interests, I suppose, but if you're interested in, say, just science or just humanities, then I wouldn't say that it's necessarily the best thing to force yourself to take APs outside this subject.
Okay. Well, in the interest of time, you also have to leave soon, so let me finish the questions with you. So, could you tell us a little bit about your personal statement about what you wrote when you applied for Harvard?
Yeah, so I had a kind of, I guess, strange personal statement in a way. I wrote about buttered chapatis, which is kind of Indian bread, and I kind of connected that to my interest in economics. So I guess the idea of my personal statement was to convey both my cultural background and my interest, and to show how those two things kind of intertwined throughout my high school career. I guess it just kind of came to me. Like I spent like 2 months thinking of what to write. And then once I got it, I guess it just like, I wrote it all within a couple of days. But like I was making no progress whatsoever on my essays for the longest time. Like all of summer, I wrote absolutely nothing. I was just thinking the whole time. And then the first week of school, I suddenly realized what I wanted to write about. Yeah, I mean, it was a fun essay to write. Like I genuinely enjoyed writing it because it was about two things that I care about a lot. And I threw in all sorts of like bad puns about bread. And it was just a good experience writing that essay. I think it was a good experience because I was writing about something that was very personal to me and that was very kind of core to who I am as a person.
Great. And can you also talk a little bit about your extracurricular activities outside of school and also things you did inside school, other than academics?
Sure. So my biggest extracurricular activities were probably this service platform that I had called Volunteer Connect, which I started in sophomore year. And it basically was just a database for service projects that had been completed at school. I won't go into too much detail about it so as not to bore you, but basically it was just it was a big database of projects that had been done related to service at HKIS to help people find service organizations that they'd be best suited to. In my senior year, I got onto the Hong Kong debate team, and I represented Hong Kong at the World Championships, where we placed 6th. And that was probably one of the more, I guess, exciting experiences of my high school time. And I also have maintained an economics blog since sophomore year, which is now published every week in the South China Morning Post Young Post. And I guess those were probably 3 of my main extracurriculars over my time in high school. They're all 3 were things that I really felt a lot of interest in and I really enjoyed doing.
Great. And lastly, can you tell us what it's like to study at Harvard?
It's great. I mean, it's a fantastic place. There are tons of really smart, really motivated, really exciting people. I really enjoyed my first semester there. It's great not having to commute to school every morning. I don't have to wake up at 6 a.m. anymore. I wake up at 9 most days, which is fantastic. I get to you get a lot more freedom in college than in high school. You get to do whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do it, as long as you get your assignments done on time. And I really appreciate that freedom. It's been a great experience so far. I'm looking forward to my future stuff.
Great. I think Cedric has something a little bit different to say about this experience, but we'll record it and send it to you later.
Sure.
All right. Thanks a lot, Yash. Feel free to log off whenever, yeah?
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Great. Henry, one of your greatest achievements you did in high school was getting a 45 out of 45 on your IBs. Can you tell us, how do you do that?
Sure. Well, all my high-level subjects were very much essay-based, which means that they're usually a bit more difficult to gain because the marking is a bit more subjective. So what I thought was most important was understanding the mechanisms and having a diverse, unique perspective on the issues that are usually discussed in the exams. These are the most important because they help you illustrate your depth of knowledge and your special understanding of the subject. So, for example, in English literature, as recommended by my previous speaker, to do some undergraduate level analysis online through the different online databases that different schools have. So I did that and then tried to incorporate some of the key points from those analyses into my own essays. And this is very much the same for history as well, where you read from different historians, from the really thick books that they really like to write, and trying to take and sort of see what you agree with and see what ideas that you think would best suit your flow of the argument. And this is also very similar to econ, where you really have to explain why things happen, why a subsidy, for example, might improve the trade balance. You can't just say it just happens, you have to explain it every step of the way. So it's really about having a thorough knowledge of your subject and having the ability to describe it fully when you're answering essay question.
Great, thank you. Quan Long, so you're wake up, Quan Long. So you're our physics tutor. Everyone comes to you for physics. How do you manage the amount of students you have on our platform and schoolwork?
Well, to be honest, university is much more free than high school, I'd say. It's definitely tough. Like the academic load is quite a bit, but if you manage your time well, and if you have something, personally, I just enjoy teaching, and it makes me happy to see students struggling the same way I did succeed. So if you really enjoy doing something, you can always make time for it while balancing your social and academic life in university, unlike high school.
Thanks, Quan Long. Okay, sticking with Quan Long, you applied to US, Hong Kong, and the UK. Can you tell us a little bit about the difference in the application procedure?
Yeah, for sure. Well, my decision was to apply to all three of the places, which I don't think many people do, but I'd say it was probably one of the best decisions I made. The reason why is, well, in HKIS specifically, you can only apply for 10 schools, and the UK system only counts for 1 out of the 10 schools. So that's like an additional 4 or 5 schools you can apply to, which opens up your options very, very greatly. In terms of the application process, the US is obviously a common app. Your counselors can tell you all about that. And the UK and Hong Kong applications are just one big essay about yourself and why you want to, why they should choose you and accept you in that major. So they're kind of, the 2 essays are kind of the same thing. You can use them together.
Great, thank you. Henry, can you tell us a little bit about this program you're in? It's quite specific, and to my understanding, there's only 10 people accepted into this program.
Yes, that's correct. So my program is a dual degree program that both universities run simultaneously. Well, not simultaneously, but first we go to UCL. The first 2 years for the core modules in the UK, and year 3 and 4 to learn the Hong Kong specific modules that we need to qualify. So in the end, at the end of the 4 years, I'll be getting a degree from UCL and also a degree from Hong Kong U in law for both the UK and Hong Kong.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit when did you start realizing that you wanted to become a lawyer?
Well, I started wanting to become a lawyer quite early on, actually. I think I was about 6 or 8, when there was a huge PCCW shareholder issue that my parents were involved in, and they had lost quite a bit of money as a result. And in the end, it was actually the courts that stopped PCCW from doing what they wanted. And I think it was at that point that I sort of realized that being a lawyer is useful because you get back at people who make you lose money.
Thanks, Henry. Are you still planning to run for the chief executive of Hong Kong in 2047?
Yeah, sure. I think that would be quite an interesting experience.
It's actually true. He does have the aspirations, and definitely he has mass backing. Quan Long, can you tell us a little bit why you decided to attend UK in the end? Go to UK University, sorry.
Yeah. So, well, speaking from my personal experience now, I found that the UK is much more career-oriented. So, everyone around you has some sort of vision, and the environment here really forces you to become an adult much earlier. I guess the prime example is the whole dorm system here. Everyone is mainly in single rooms, whereas in the US you have roommates. So you're all alone and nobody's going to tell you to wake up in the morning, which is quite scary. For me personally, it was one of the best choice for my major and a good stepping stone for my career in the future. So that's not to say I was ruling out all the unis in the U.S. and Hong Kong. I'm sure every single region, they're just as great and have something completely different to offer. It just depends on what you personally want. And during my time, I thought that the UK was the best choice for me.
And how did you know you wanted to major in your major? I mean, when did you find that passion?
Oh, so for me, it was much earlier. I'd say around freshman, sophomore year, I was interested in the medical field already. And by junior, senior year, I was looking into what kind of majors like I could apply for, whether it's straight medicine or biomedical engineering, which I'm in right now. And I thought, well, I actually applied for, the funny thing is I applied for medicine in Hong Kong and pre-med in the US and biomedical engineering in the UK. To be honest, I don't know where those choices came from, but I just thought biomedical engineering is compared to medicine, it keeps changing. So like the world's changing way too quickly, you don't know what's gonna happen. So that's gonna be a very, very interesting topic to choose.
Great. 3 years is pretty quick. Are you planning to do a master's afterwards?
Yeah, exactly. And the reason for biomedical engineering, another reason for that is, whereas medicine is 5 to 6 years in UK and Hong Kong, and 10 years plus in the US, biomedical engineering is only 3 years in the UK, and right after that I could, decide, oh, I want to continue my medical degree and get a master's in medicine, or decide to pursue something else. So.
Great. Question for both of you. Did you guys have any teachers that helped foster your passion and help you guys to guide where you should go to school or what you should major in? Henry, you could go first.
Okay. Well, at Shatin, funny thing is that the support that we get is quite a bit more limited. For example, we only get 6 schools and UCAS counts for every one of them. So your 5 schools in UCAS counts for 5 spots on your quota. So in Shatin, it's quite a bit more difficult, university application-wise, to get support. But the teachers were very helpful, especially in history, in guiding our reading. And I think that's very much important for our final exam performance.
Great. Quan Long?
No. It was pretty much like, so HKIS, it's a very good school. The teachers are there. The teachers there are very helpful. The counselors are too. But nobody's going to make the decision for you. I'm sure other people have different experiences with, a very nice teacher helping them find their inspiration, etc. But it was mainly like my drive to do what I did mainly came from myself and other experiences.
Good answer. So now that you're planning to do your master's, you're planning to do an internship during the summer, right? Quan Long?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes.
So now you have to kind of cozy up with the teachers, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm planning to do some sort of internship with the PhD researchers in my school, and so all my lecturers are the PhD researchers. So I have to, buy them a cupcake here and there.
And it's important, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's important throughout, whether you're at university or high school, you should stay in good terms with your teachers. Something that I regret a lot is not being on better terms with my teachers in high school. Looking back now, I wish I went to class a bit earlier, had a few more conversations with them, et cetera, et cetera.
Thanks, Quan Long. I don't think they're too disappointed with you. All right, guys. Thank you so much for attending this. Have a great day. We're going to continue offline now.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, can I get the first group? Hey, guys. Thank you so much for coming today. Really appreciate it. Can I get you all to briefly introduce yourselves first? Oh, right. There's the mic.
I guess I'll start first. My name is Herbert, and considering the list of panelists here, I think I'm the oldest. Most of you guys are in college, but I actually graduated from college last year, May 2017 from Penn, after transferring from Northwestern University after my freshman year. And before that, I graduated from HKIS in 2013 after spending 13 and a half years in HKIS. I was there since R1, so I'm quite familiar with the entire process of HKIS, as much as it is qualified back in 2013. And then now I'm back in Hong Kong working full-time. And I guess now I'm eligible to say that while working hard is very important, there's nothing that beats college and high school life.
So what are you doing now?
I'm working in investment banking at UBS, and it's a completely different experience from school.
Hi, my name is Charlotte. I am a sophomore currently at Dartmouth College, and I also graduated from HKIS, though I graduated in the year 2016. Right now I'm actually on an off term in Hong Kong, so I will be here, and I have been here since December, and I will be here till March as a tech management intern at a hedge fund. One of the great things about Dartmouth is they let you take an off term whenever you like, as long as it benefits you in terms of internships or studying abroad or whatever you want to do with your career, and that's something that has made me really excited about being here today, to be able to come speak with you guys.
Thank you, Charlotte. Jonathan?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm studying economics modified with computer science and a psychology double major.
I'm studying, studied philosophy, politics, economics, PP.
Hi, so I'm Jonathan. I'm right now in my first year of Masters at Oxford University, and I'm majoring in East Asia. And so I graduated from undergrad actually in 2017, just this past summer. And for 3 years I was a philosophy, politics, and economics major. And before that I was at HKS for, 12 years, so since grade 1. And I graduated from HKS in 2014. And yeah, so I think I'm sort of unique in that I went to the UK University, and that sort of gave me a different experience in terms of HKS and APs and the application process, and so I can help everyone with that.
Hi everyone, my name is Claudia Tung. I graduated from HKIS in 2016 with Charlotte. I'm currently a sophomore at Emory University, and I'm a business and psych double major and a French minor. I've been at HKIS since 6th grade, so a bit later than them, but I'm still pretty familiar with their system.
I know it seems like they all graduated from HIS, which they did, but it's due to technical issues, that's why we had to group them together. But the next group we have representatives from other schools as well. So Claudia, let's start with you. You're majoring in psychology, right? When did you realize that you wanted to major in psychology?
I actually started my academic interest in bio. So when I was younger, I always wanted to know why and how things were. So I turned to biology to look for different answers for my questions, and bio did give me answers for a while. So in my freshman year, I took honors bio, and then I took AP bio in my junior year, and I really liked the courses. But there were still some questions that were left unanswered, so I turned to psych for that. And then in my sophomore year, I took intro to psych, and then AP psych in senior year. And then that's when I started realizing psych can give me the answers I really want. And then, yeah, so that's kind of what made me start taking psych courses in college. So I've been taking psych courses every semester, and it's the one class I always look forward to going to, even if it's at 8:30 in the morning. So yeah, that's why I kind of realized I wanted to be a psych major.
Great. Charlotte, maybe you can tell us a little bit how you managed to create this major of both econ and comp sci.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm doing a modified major of economics with computer science, and at Dartmouth, one of the great things about the school is that you can make whatever major out of the departments that they have available for you, and this really means that whatever you want to do, whatever you actually care about, you can make it fit your major, you can make it fit your academic interests as well. And so for me, I knew I liked economics because I took AP Econ in high school, and I loved my teacher, and I loved the class because I felt like I was learning so much more about how people think and how the world works. And then when I got to Dartmouth, I took computer science like 101 essentially, and I fell in love with, you know, a more technical scientific field which was something that I never thought I would be interested in because I was never a super math or science type person in high school. And so at Dartmouth, the process to create a modified major is actually pretty simple. You basically go to the two departments that you want to take your major from. So for me, specifically economics and computer science, and you get approval from the head of the department, which as long as you write an essay essentially about why you want to pursue these two modifications, especially with a focus on how you want to apply it to your career, they are normally pretty understanding, and there's pretty much no subject that you can't modify. One of my favorite modified majors is the math modified with theater, which is what one of my friends is graduating with in the spring.
How come you're not taking that?
Oh, I'm not a math person.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. No, I didn't.
Prompted you suddenly in college to take it because usually you would have had some experience
Right.
in high school, but you didn't.
Yeah, well, in terms of computer science, at Dartmouth, the 101 course for computer science is actually the most popular course for freshmen to take. And I wanted a very diverse first term at Dartmouth, so I took a women's and gender studies class, my computer science class, and I believe a psych class. So I really wanted to get the full range of what was offered at Dartmouth. And I love the class, I did really well in it, and you know, it's not for everybody, definitely, but I think if you are interested in it, you don't have to get started in high school with something that you might not know if you're interested in until later down the road, which is great.
Actually, quick question. Is the learning curve really steep since people probably had maybe a year of exposure prior to you?
I think the learning curve is a little steep, especially if I think it's something that a lot of people either get or they don't in terms of if you want to go into really, really high levels of computer science. But I think the lower levels are definitely concepts that everybody should think about whether or not they want to take a class in it, because even if it's not your thing, it forces your mind to work in ways that you probably never have thought about, you know, how these two pieces fit together in a very specific kind of way that even other fields in the tech or science or math industries don't necessarily force your mind to do, which is great.
Thank you, Charlotte. This question is for both Jonathan and Herbert. You guys both took PP&E, one in the UK and one in the US. So maybe you guys can talk a little bit about your experience and what it is, because I don't think a lot of people know what it is, actually.
Right, so in Oxford, PPE is the biggest subject, and what happens is they actually teach it together, so it's not a triple major as it sounds like, it's actually just one major in PP&E. And what happens is in the first year, you sort of take courses in all three as an introduction to logic, to philosophy, politics and economics. And then second year, you get to specialize in two of those, and so I chose politics and philosophy, and you take 8 modules in specific subjects related to those two broader subjects. And that's sort of how it is. And in Oxford, they teach it quite separately. And so there aren't many programs that combine elements of PP&E. It's more in each branch, and you're left to make the connections on your own. And in Oxford, it's quite a good experience because of the system where you sort of have a mentorship scheme with a professor. And so most classes are actually with only 1 or 2 students. And so that gives you a chance to really talk with some world-class academics and professors on your essays and on your homework. And they give you very good feedback and very in-depth sort of feedback on your work.
I think it seems like the overarching idea is very similar, with the exception that at Penn, PPE seems to be more focused on breadth, and also there's this kind of factor where they try to integrate it together in your final 2 years, and also they give you a lot of flexibility to pursue what you want. So in your first 2 years, you're very encouraged to take the foundational courses in all 3 aspects, philosophy, politics, economics, making sure that you do have exposure to all 3, as opposed to another major where they emphasize more drilling down the fundamentals of one specific major. They make sure that you're at least very, very, very well aware of all the things that happen in these 3 as it is in the real world. And then later on, you get a lot of flexibility to create kind of a module as to which you're most interested in. For me personally, I'm much more interested in politics and economics. So after talking to my advisors, in which everybody does, you create a list of 4 to 5 classes where you focus on. And for me, it was mostly on international politics and how that integrates with the economic side of things, business, finance, and all of that. And so you get to really pursue exactly what you want to learn, and they really try to bring it all together at the very end. So I think it's a really good major, just because you get to see both the quantitative and the qualitative sides, while also giving you adequate flexibility to pursue what you're interested in, which is always a really good driver to not only performing well, but more importantly, really enjoying what you do.
Great, thank you. I know this is going to be a curveball. You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but what did you guys write for your personal statements?
I think my personal statement, so at first, my first draft was more of a run-of-the-mill, sort of a rigid statement about my achievements and stuff like that, but when I talked to my HCAS advisor, actually, he was like, this is not going to work. So pretty much on the last day before I had to submit my application, I decided to simply sit down and think about what I thought of sort of philosophy, politics, and economics. And so I think my statement was on how these few things tie together. And so philosophy sort of gives you the intellectual background to a system and how do you run society. And politics is how do you play out those principles when you govern a society or when you govern a system. And economics is what really matters to people. And so whether you do politics well is measured with economics, and whether you can really make a difference in that area. And so I wrote an integrated statement on that, I think, when I was applying.
Great. How about the rest of the panelists?
The truth is, I don't quite remember what I wrote for my personal statement because it has been quite a while. I do remember what I wrote for my transfer application, which I guess is probably a little bit more relevant given that that led me to the school where I ended up graduating and majoring in. For that, the transfer app, the personal statement there is a lot more targeted towards why do you want to switch schools. Unlike the common application, the initial one in which you apply to college, which I guess the focus is more on creativity, creating your story. The transfer app is more focused on why do you want to make this change and what are you going to do about it after you make this change. So for me, I guess this kind of ties into why did I transfer. The truth is I really liked Penn out of high school. I didn't make it the first time, and so I gave it another shot and I got extremely lucky the second time. And for that statement, because PPE is relatively unique in the States, that was a really good angle to persuade the committee that this is something that I really enjoy. This is something where another school such as Northwestern cannot replicate, and I am genuinely interested in PPE simply because being in Hong Kong at that point in time, there were a lot of political issues starting to arise that were brewing, I guess, over the past 10, 15 years. Hong Kong business is always a core part of the city, and then philosophy is a very good kind of foundational, theoretical perspective to kind of tie in different ideas that bind both politics and economics. So I've always felt that I'm like to dabble with a little bit of everything. So I felt like PPE being something where I can do a little bit of math, a little bit of writing, that would be perfect.
For me, my personal statement was actually kind of different from theirs. It's a bit less serious. So I actually had trouble coming up with the topics to write about at first. So I was encouraged by my counselor to just sit down and think of like 10 things that I thought that I really cared about, and just write everything I had to say about them on a piece of paper or like a Word document or something. So that's what I did, and the thing that I ended up with the most stuff I had to say about was actually my dogs. So I just gave it a shot, just wrote about my dogs. So it might seem a little cutesy, and at first my counselor was worried that like a 17-year-old girl writing about her dogs for a college application, like who's gonna want a girl like that in their college? But in my personal statement, I tried to show like growth and change, because I got my first dog 12 years ago, so I started there, and then I wrote about my experience until now. And so I tried to talk about growth and like taking responsibility for taking care of other people and things that are not myself, and just kind of showing that like I'm also a person that's, you know, not solely focused on academics or like careers or something. So yeah, I try to make myself seem more like friendly, approachable, instead of like, oh, I'm so hardworking, I have all these ambitions I want to achieve.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point.
Question for Claudia. Why did you choose Emory University? How did you find the school?
So the question was, why did Claudia choose Emory and how did she find the school?
Yeah, it was actually my counselor who told me about Emory at first, because I didn't really know where to start looking for colleges. And he was like, oh, you should check out Emory, I think you'd fit in well there. So then I went on Emory's website, I looked at their programs, their professors, what the professors are researching and what I'd be interested in studying there. And there were several professors whose research I was really drawn to, because when I was applying to college, I really wanted to do bio and psych. So I looked at those programs and those professors more, and I found more like classes and professors that I wanted to like get to know and dip my toes in there. So that's why I ended up applying to Emory.
So did I already say this? I'm really blanking, but Claudia brings home a very important point, is that your personal statement is about your growth as a person. It's not only about what you want to achieve, but also about who you are as of today, and how all your past experience accumulate into who you are today. And they want to see that. They want to see who you are as a real person. So thank you for bringing that point. And Charlotte.
So my personal statement was also very different to the rest of theirs. So I grew up as a figure skater, and I still figure skate today on the Dartmouth figure skating team. And so figure skating was a big part of my life from when I was 3 up until today. And kind of like Claudia, I was able to write about my journey in figure skating and how it related to everything else that I ended up tackling in my academic, extracurricular, and personal life. So the lessons that I learned through pursuing an pretty extreme sport in a place like Hong Kong, and what it ended up bringing out of me, and how I was able to apply it to all the other areas of my life, and ultimately how it helped me end up where I am now.
Thank you. Yeah, quick question. Do you guys pick the SATs or ACTs one by one? And what was your rationale?
I picked ACT. My first exposure to the standardized test was actually the PSATs, and I didn't do that well on them. So I took a bunch of practice tests and courses for the SAT, but I just really didn't like the timing and how there were so many sections and how you had to breeze through them. So I tried the ACT before I even took the actual SAT, and I ended up liking the timing a lot more, and how there were only 4 sections, and also the science section was better for me than the SAT, because reading the graphs weren't too hard, and then just a few paragraphs to read for the science section wasn't too hard for me.
I actually didn't have any real exposure to the ACT. I took the SAT the first semester of sophomore year and did well enough that I just left it there. I feel like when it comes to choosing between the two, my younger brother just went through it, and the rationale for him, I know, was that the SAT, he didn't have to do a science section, basically.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, I chose the SAT, and the reason was because that seemed to be the default path. And so, like Charlotte, I wasn't really exposed to the ACT. I didn't really hear about it until after I took the SAT. And when I took the SAT, my score was well enough that I knew I could continue to do that. But I do have some friends who did take the ACT, and the reason was because there is a science section, and they wanted to be tested on a bigger breadth of topics, and that was better for them. And so I think it really depends on individual, sort of what you like and what you're interested in.
I also took the SAT. That was because back in 2012, ACT was still kind of emerging. SAT was still the way to go, so I didn't really think too much about it.
Yeah, well, we also see that, actually with the SAT having been recently changed back to the 1,600 point scheme, we saw a lot of parents actually take the ACTs last year, which is also just as good. We do have more information on our website, you know, the pros and cons of both, but do take a look. And I think a lot of students are debating that right now, and ACTs are becoming more and more popular. Just last question, I actually have a whole list of questions, but you know, due to time. And afterwards, we're gonna have a break-up, not break-up, we're gonna have drinks and, you know, social hours that you guys can approach them individually and ask questions if you guys want to ask them privately. Jonathan, so can you tell us a little bit about Oxford and its unique interview process? I mean, is it in-person interview process?
So in Oxford, unlike a lot of other schools for undergrad, you need to interview. And usually what happens is you apply in October of the previous year, and then if you get an offer, you'll be interviewed in December of the same year. And they usually give you an option. You can either interview via Skype or you interview in person. And from what I've heard from professors, they do prefer in person because Skype is there's always internet issues and all that.
No,
and
there isn't.
Yeah, and so they prefer in person. And so what happens when you interview is they give you an invitation, it's quite short notice, they'll say, can you fly to Oxford in, let's say, 2 weeks and stay here for 3 days? They'll cover all your accommodation and board and food. And basically you live in the college that you applied for. So Oxford is split into different colleges, and each college is its own basic academic community. And it has its own professors and different staff for each subject. And so when you apply for Oxford, you choose a college, and when you get an interview offer, you'll go to that college and live there for 3 days. And over the 3 days, you'll have either 2 or 3 interviews in your subject, and each interview will be with the professors who taught you, who will teach you in the future if you get in. And so what they try to do is, in a half-an-hour session, they try to get a feel for you as a student, whether you're teachable, whether they want to teach you, and whether you suit their interests or their academic sort of area. And yeah, that's how it really works. And in the 3 days, you'll be mingling with other candidates as well. There will be lots of other activities you'll be in, so you can sort of simulate an Oxford life. But mainly it is the interviews, and mainly they are trying to see sort of what sort of student you are and whether you're a good fit for them personally.
Okay. This question is for Claudia. For psychology, you know, it's a pretty broad major. Is there anything that you're planning to specifically focus on?
I haven't really thought about that too much yet, because right now I'm still taking a bunch of different courses to see what I'd be really interested in. So for example, my first semester I had to take an intro course, and then my second semester I took a course on infancy, and just last semester I took a course on social psychology, and next semester I'll be doing a primate social psychology. So I'm still kind of seeing what parts of psychology I'm especially drawn to, even though everything is still really fascinating to me, so it's a bit hard to choose right now.
Thank you. Charlotte, you know, you have quite a bit of students on our platform, and you also have ice skating. How do you manage all of this?
Like some of the previous tutors said on the dial-in panel, college is definitely a place where you have a lot more free time. And so when you don't have to be somewhere at this specific hour for 8 hours a day, which is what school was, and then extracurriculars and everything afterwards, you know, your time is on your own hands. And so the way I was able to do and how I've been able to manage the various things that you just mentioned have been really in choosing classes and extracurriculars that I really care about. When you choose a class and when you choose an activity that you actually want to spend your time doing, it still is stressful and there still is work. Like, I'm not trying to minimize that at all. College, there's work to do, and there's a lot of work to do sometimes. But if you're doing stuff that you genuinely care about and you're genuinely passionate about, the work seems a lot less daunting, and you're able to time manage because you actually want to do the stuff that to somebody else, which is like reading a book or like doing a problem set, might be, you know, one of the most difficult or one of the most boring things they have to tackle. But for you, it's intellectually stimulating, it's fun, you get to spend time with people in your same course, in your same interests, and on top of that, like for me, I really care about, you know, teaching other people and like passing down the knowledge that I have, because I mean, we're all gonna be gone someday, I guess. And you know, who else am I gonna teach the stuff that I've learned to? And so this combination of just doing things I genuinely care about and wanting to really, you know, pass down what I've learned and interact with the younger generation is the way that I've been able to manage, I guess, doing what I want to do at Dartmouth.
Thank you. So it really does take a passion to also be a teacher as well, right? Herbert, what are you doing after this?
I'm going back to work.
Tell us about your just a little bit about your last week and how you're working on the 31st of December.
Well, I work in the financial industry, which is a little bit longer hours than you're usually exposed to back in school, high school, and college.
The question is, what does it mean by a little bit longer hours?
There are later nights. I think the latest
You can't even call it night, it's morning, right?
on Friday, I think I left the office around 3:30 a.m. something like that. There are but that being said, Penn is a great school to get you ready for the professional life. This is where the alumni base, where your friends really make a huge difference, because a life like this is not something that you can be a little blindsided by. You don't go in and just suddenly people tell you, hey, you gotta stay for this X amount of hours. But a lot of my mentors, a lot of my peers who have gone through this process, so I was already very well aware of what I was signing up for in order to learn a lot of the things that they provide you, they equip you with. And then even back in HKIS, in which the course load was also quite rigorous as well. That also was part of the process in which helped me prepare for what I'm doing now. And I guess also one more thing, while HKIS is an international school, I did take Mandarin all the years except for my last year, and it is helping me survive in the Hong Kong banking industry so far. So that is some credit to the Hong Kong Mandarin program as well.
Herbert has an investment banking gene. If you look at his skin, although he stayed up till 3 a.m., it still looks perfectly fine. I had a friend just like that as well in high school. He pulled insane hours and he still looked fine. For me, when I pulled those hours, I looked like crap, if you will, the next day. So I guess you have a bright future ahead of you. Okay, thanks a lot, guys. But last one is what type of suggestions would you give the audience here today, whether it be parents or whether it be students? Just a quick one.
I think having, I guess, completed this entire process, not completed this, right, but having gone through, not only high school, but also college, which I guess you guys are still waiting for that for a couple of years, it's important to work hard and be prepared, but at the same time, looking back, it's a really fun time. And as long as you're able to prepare well in advance, don't forget to enjoy the process as well, because once you start work, there's really no going back.
Totally agree.
So have a balance. Have a balance for making sure that you do all the things you have to do, but also make sure that doesn't make it a burden. Make it something as something you have to do and walk along the process. Enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, echoing everything he said, and on a slightly different note, I think college admissions can be a really scary time for the parents and the kids, obviously, because right now it seems like it's your whole world. It's like, wherever I go is going to determine where I end up at afterwards and then afterwards, but I don't think that's the case. Sometimes I can't even remember where my friends go to school, and at the end of the day, the reality is that not everybody's going to go get into their dream school, and you can work as hard as you want to try and get there, which is super commendable and obviously what everybody should do, but the fact is that with college admissions there is a little bit of luck and there is a little bit of uncertainty that no one can predict. And with that being said, I would say that for somebody who might be scared of that happening, don't be. I have so many friends who didn't end up at their #1 school or their dream school, who didn't end up in a city but ended up in the countryside or vice versa, and they're having a blast. College really is what you make of it, and Although there are circumstances where you might want to transfer for specific programs, I think for the majority of my friends who didn't end up at the places that they were like, wow, this is my #1 school, like at HIPS or, you know, Oxford, Cambridge, whatever, they're having an amazing time and they would not change where they are for the world. I even have a friend who applied to transfer and then decided to stay at her school because she realized that it's actually somewhere where I've made a place for myself, which is something I think is really important to remember during this whole process.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, I would say keep an open mind. For me, I didn't know I wanted to do PPE or humanities until basically 11th grade. I was always going to engineering or math and science. And so I'll say, you know, many things happen. Your mind might change, your college choices might change. I wasn't thinking about the UK until 11th grade. I was always shooting for the US until very late. And so yeah, just keep an open mind, explore more options, keep your mind open, see what you like, try new things, and don't get stuck into a path where you're like, okay, I'm going to go to this school for this major from 9th grade. Always see more things and widen your perspectives before you choose a major.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that point for students. One thing I regret from high school is not taking AP Econ because I was so focused on like bio and psych. Even though I'm still on track for you know, finishing my credits and requirements for my 2 majors and minor, being more open-minded in high school definitely would have helped me make it a little bit easier for me now. So yeah, I think definitely try to take as many courses as you would like to take, as many courses as you can handle. And also for parents, one thing I really appreciated that my parents did for me was they were very supportive no matter what I chose. So when I was a little girl, I wanted to be like a doctor. And of course they were like very happy, yay, Asian daughter wanted to be a doctor. And then I changed to vet, and then they were like, oh yeah, that's great, you know, just keep exploring your passions. But then in high school, when I started thinking about psychology, they were still very supportive. And then even now, and when I changed to business, psych, and French, they're still very happy about my decisions, and they trust me with my, like how I can handle my responsibilities and my, just, you know, what I have to do for my major. So I think, yeah, it's really important for the parents to trust your kids and also to encourage them and support them.
Yeah, Dad, you can hear her advice. Okay, thank you guys so much. Thank you so much. Great, thank you so much for coming here today. We really appreciate it. Guys, everyone, can you give me a brief introduction of yourselves?
Hi, my name is Elizabeth. I graduated from HKIS in 2016. I am currently a sophomore at Colgate University, which is a small liberal arts school in New York, and I am majoring in educational studies with a minor in Asian studies and possibly English.
Hi, I'm Shreya D'Souza, and I studied at German Swiss International School and graduated last year in 2017. I'm currently a freshman in Brown University. I applied undecided, but I'm thinking about concentrating in computational biology.
Hi, I'm Cedric. I graduated from Charlton College in 2017. I'm currently a freshman at Harvard University, and I intend to concentrate in economics or applied math and economics.
Hi, I'm Jay Hugh. I grew up in Chicago and I moved to Hong Kong when I was 12. I first went to Yuchang International School from year 9 to year 11, and then I went to Chinese International School for IB from year 12 to year 17. And at Yuchang I did IGCSE. And then I first went to Boston College for my freshman year, and then I transferred to the University of Pennsylvania. I'm currently a junior, double majoring in economics and psychology and minoring in math.
Great, thank you very much. Can you guys tell me a little bit about how the courses from your high school help you select your majors? Or was there any influence, or was it totally the opposite?
I can go first. So the courses I took in high school were actually quite different from what I ended up studying in college. Most of the APs I took were in the natural sciences and math, so I took bio and chem and psych. And I went into college actually thinking that I was gonna stick with that, so I took math and chemistry, and I took psychology, but I didn't like love it. I didn't really look forward to going to class. So at Colgate, there's a system where you have to fill some requirements. So you have a social sciences requirement, science and math requirement and stuff like that. So it kind of forces you to take a wide range of courses. And I chose my major based on just the classes I loved, and I ended up loving the educational studies classes and Asian studies classes that I took, and I just stuck with that.
Thank you.
I actually had the opposite experience because I did the IB in high school, and I was quite restrictive in the subject areas I could take because I took 2 sciences, 1 humanities, 1 second language, 1 math and English, and so on. So for that, I basically just chose subjects which I enjoyed most from each of the subject areas. So for example, for the humanities, I chose economics because that was what interested me the most. But what's special about Brown actually is that there are no gen ed requirements. So right now, I'm actually able to choose whatever courses I am interested in. And I think one thing that's really good about university is that there's so many more courses offered than you have to choose from in high school. So for example, I've actually become quite interested in computer science, which I did not take in IB. So yeah, I'm really excited to take a course in it.
Yep. I had a similar experience with Shreya. I also did the IB, and so like I did a bit of everything, but the 2 classes I really enjoyed were math and economics, and also geography, I guess. And they were all my higher level classes. And so it sort of made sense to me to go on to Harvard to study similar subjects, especially since they're also pretty good within these subject areas. That being said, I also chose to go down this path in college because of my extracurriculars. I did a lot of MUN, I did a lot of debating. I'm really interested in like current affairs and like how the world works. And it's really great to see how the theory we learned in class reflected in the real world and what we see around us. So that is also why I decided to pick this major.
So I had kind of a different experience. In IGCSE, I realized that like economics was my favorite subject, and I took economics all throughout high school, and I've been really fortunate to have economics so early on. And so I've always liked economics. And I did economics, physics, and math higher level in IB, and also chemistry, Chinese, and English standard level. And I went to college thinking I would be an economics and physics double major because they were my 2 favorite subjects. But I quickly learned, well not quickly, but sophomore spring, I was taking a 200 level physics course, and it was just so down in the weeds with all the calculations, using like imaginary numbers, like eigenvectors, eigenvalues, partial derivatives, and the Schrodinger equation, never look at it, like it looks ugly. So that made me totally switch from physics to psychology. So now I'm economics and psychology. And I think something that I didn't really realize in high school was that high school classes are really conceptual. They ask you in physics, like when you like turn in a car, like why do you feel like you're being thrown outwards? Explain this in words, right? Or in economics, they ask you to read a recent article and then analyze it and debate the advantages and disadvantages. But in college, it's pretty different. The courses are a lot more quantitative, a lot more deep down in the weeds, a lot more calculations, a lot more math. Like econ, it's a lot of like calculus. So I think even though you like some subjects in high school, your interests can change, and maybe you like some subjects in high school for reasons that are different than what you like in college. And your interests can change, and that's totally fine. And I think especially in the US, there's a lot of flexibility. And you can still continue liking science and physics and not majoring in it because maybe the course at that university is too quantitative, or it's focusing on areas that you might not be the most interested in. And it's totally fine to switch.
Great, thank you. The next question, sorry, there's also a curveball, but what do you guys write for your personal statements? You don't have to answer if you don't want to. Anyone can start first.
I actually wrote about how I had a fear of emails and how I hated sending emails to important people, but I kind of took that, that was like a weakness I had, and I took that and tried to show growth, and I related that to how I ended up gaining skills that were useful for, eventual leadership positions that I got in like junior, senior year. And so for me, my focus was to show a learning curve and also relate kind of a more personal part of me to the extracurriculars that I listed on my application.
For me, I'm really interested in music outside my academics. So I wrote about Chopin's Raindrop Prelude, and I kind of analyzed like the different sections of the piece and related it to different parts of my life. So for the first part, I talked about my childhood and how it was like really carefree, and the next part was like quite dark in atmosphere. I talked about my insecurities through teenage life, and towards the end of the piece, it gets happier again, and I talked about how I feel more secure in my choices. And yeah, just like a lot of people, how my learning curve in life.
Yeah, so how I approached the personal statement was, I thought of it as a story about myself. So, how did I become the person I was today? So it was a lot of reflection, and basically what I summarized about myself in year 13, my final year was, I was a leader in many student organizations, I was pretty confident. While I'm reflecting on how I entered, middle school, I was a lot more shy, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, I was really small and unconfident. So throughout my personal statement, I sort of tried to deconstruct and sort of analyze how I became who I was at the end of high school, from where I started at the start of middle school. And what I sort of came to was the fact that I had a group of very nice mentors throughout our school. So our school, Charlton College, has a very nice student leader system, where each year a group of year 12 students takes on some kids from lower years, and they help them organize activities, they run competitions and stuff like that. And I talked about how through this system I was able to become more confident and more secure about myself, and how that molded me into someone who wanted to give back in a similar system. And I guess this is why math sort of resonates with me, because it's all about this community of older kids who have done things, who have more experience, helping younger kids who need this sort of help. And yeah, that was my personal statement.
Thanks, Cedric.
So I'm gonna take a different approach, and I'm gonna maybe talk more about my transfer essay than my Common App essay, because my Common App essay, I guess, wasn't as good because I didn't get into a lot of my top schools. But so for my transfer essay, again, as you heard before, it's a lot more specific. It asks you why you're transferring and how this can help you reach your future goals. So I want to be a high school teacher, and I knew that ever since after year 12, after the summer of year 12. And so I framed my entire essay around my aspirations of becoming a teacher. So I think Alex was going to ask this later, but I'm just going to answer this now. But so one of the reasons that I wanted to transfer was that I wanted more deep, meaningful conversations with the people around me. And I wanted to be exposed to a lot more diverse experiences and diverse people with different backgrounds. And I thought Penn was a lot more suitable in that sense. So why do I want more deep, meaningful conversations? Well, I said, as a teacher, I'm going to need to foster that love of learning in my students. I'm going to need to consider different perspectives. I need to know the different issues and the different debates that are going on in the world, so I can foster that kind of vitality in my students and make sure that they're not just learning for the sake of grades, but they're learning because they want to be a more well-rounded person, a better person who's more aware of current issues. So I talked about that, and then I talked about why do I want a more diverse student body? Well, because as a teacher, I'm going to have to work with a lot of diverse students and diverse staff. And I'm going to need to cater to a lot of diverse learning styles, a lot of students from diverse backgrounds, maybe from low-income backgrounds, maybe of different races, different ethnicities. So that transferring to an institution like Penn that is a lot more diverse is going to help me in terms of becoming a better teacher as well. So that's what I talked about in my transfer essay.
Great point. I think what's interesting is that you also transferred from Boston College to UPenn. I mean, what's the type of advice you would give to students who are applying and may not have gone to the top university? I mean, how do you build that grit to see things through? This is a total curveball.
No. So I think that's a really good question, and I think like for all the students out there right now, and all the parents too, like this process is really stressful, right? I'm gonna acknowledge that right off the bat. Like I think year 13, when I was doing applications, that was the hardest time of my life. Writing all those essays and applying to all those schools and having such pressure, not just at CIS, but from parents, from friends, from family, from other people who I know who have gone on to good universities, from myself as well. But I think when I did get into all 7 of my top choices, Harvard being one of them, who rejected me twice actually, transfer and high school application. So I think that really took a hit on my self-esteem and my confidence, especially since both my parents went to UChicago. I felt like I had a pretty decent chance, but when I got rejected, I was pretty devastated. But I think knowing that, I think my dad was talking to me and he was saying, this is not the end of the world, you can always transfer, right? That's always an option. And I thought maybe I don't want to go into Boston College with the mindset that I'm just going to ditch, right? But I'm going to give it a chance, but I'm going to keep transferring at the back of my mind because it's still a good option. So I think I went and I gave Boston College a try, and I felt like it really wasn't that suitable for what I wanted in terms of a university, and it wasn't the best match for me. And I think to all the students out there, I applied to transfer. It's going through college apps again. It does require a lot of grit. Going through the same process, going twice, getting rejected from your top 4 choices twice. It's really hard, but I think to all the students and parents out there, even if you don't get into your top choices your first time around, there's always hope. There's hope for you, right? It's not it's not I think a lot of Chinese parents, especially from mainland China, think it's a really you have to do this right now. You have to achieve the highest. You have to this is going to determine your entire life. Well, while that might be true to a certain extent in mainland China or in Hong Kong with a lot of standardized exams, that's not really true in America or in the UK. There are always second chances out there. And even if you don't go to your top choices, you can still be happy at a lot of your quote-unquote safety schools or any other school. It's, again, college is what you make of it. And now they're saying that your graduate school is more important than your undergraduate school. So whether you go to graduate school or not, it really, there's a world of opportunities out there, and not everything is determined based on what school you go to freshman year.
Thanks, Jay. Jack Ma was rejected by Harvard umpteen times, right? You ever seen that video? Yeah. So I mean, respect to your grit. Cedric, can you tell us a little bit how, you told me about how you were mentored to do the leadership things that you did. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you return that favor to the kids younger than you?
Yeah, sure. So basically, how it was structured was we had a house system. So in Harry Potter, how the school is split into 4 houses. We had 6 houses. And every house went through all the years. So in every year there would be a house called Armstrong, which is the yellow house that I was in. And so the older students in year 12 would come down, 2 of them would come down to our house group, called our forum, every morning. And they would just come talk to us about house events, try to get us to sign up for events and stuff like that. And initially I didn't feel I was really small, I was really shy. Everyone around me was older than me. I wasn't sure if I could make an actual contribution to this bigger entity, which was the house, right? But then I remember the house captain, head of house. Her name was Katie, and she was just really nice. She was super encouraging. She would just every time I went to an event, she would be like, "Oh, hi Cedric, it's good to see you're here again." And for a kid, that's all you really need, just to feel like you're recognized. your contribution is needed in this great organization. And like, you know, just those small things, like, you know, over Christmas, our student leaders invite us Christmas cards and like to talk about, you know, oh, like I noticed you went to like these events this year, like thank you for coming, you know, hope you contribute next time. You know, these small acknowledgments of what we did were really like encouraging, and they really helped build my confidence into believing that I could, you know, do something, and like my contribution was not just needed but valuable, you know. And so like when I got to year 12, when I became a student leader, I tried to recreate that for my own forum as well. So you know, I would always, you know, go around and have chats with the kids in my forum about like, you know, how their life is going, you know, whether or not they're having fun at school, whether or not they want to, you know, join in on house events. And my partner and I would also like, you know, bring in candy during like Easter, Christmas, stuff like that, write them Christmas cards, which is really nice. And you know, you get to see them change really, and like how they feel like more happier, more welcome in those like house events. And like even though we may not always win everything in like competitions between houses, like it's just good to see that like they're just happy being there, being part of this great organization. And like that's what I try to do. So like I don't try to force anyone to do anything. It's just about, you know, letting them feel like they have space in which they can be, you know, the best they can be. And like whatever they try to do, we sort of encourage that. And I try to like bring that everywhere we go.
I think you're speaking to me directly. I feel very bad. Thank you for teaching me this. No, I'm serious. It's very. Thank you for sharing that. Shreya, you know, why did you pick Brown? I mean, it's a very competitive school to get in, and you know, what is it like studying there?
So I picked Brown mainly because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, so I wanted to go to a university which had a really good undergraduate system because I wanted to be able to explore as many different departments and subjects as possible. So as I mentioned earlier, Brown has something called an open curriculum, which is really unique to the school, in which there are no general education requirements. So for most universities, you have to take things like 2 sciences, 2 humanities, and they'll be different for every uni. But Brown has none of those, except for the fact that you have to take 2 writing courses, and those 2 can be in different departments. For example, I did a writing course in psychology this past semester. Another good thing about Brown is that you can choose which classes you take, pass or fail. So I think it's really good for students who just want to explore courses which they aren't sure they'll excel in, so they won't feel the pressure to get A's, for example, in a particular course. So the same psychology course, I took pass-fail. So throughout the year, I really enjoyed writing all my papers and taking my exams because I was focusing more on enjoying the content and learning about concepts rather than trying to fit the mold to get an A in the course. Also Brown, even though it is an Ivy League and very competitive to get in, the atmosphere isn't that competitive, which is a really good contrast to my high school in Hong Kong. So even though everyone over there is really smart and really accomplished, I have never really felt intimidated in the environment I was in. So all in all, at the end of the first semester, I feel like I felt really welcomed into the community, and yeah.
Thank you very much. And Elizabeth, can you tell us a little bit about the research you did when applying to universities? I mean, how did you go about it? Did you actually do any campus visits?
Yeah, so I actually didn't do any campus visits, but I met with my counselor a lot, and I knew from the start that I didn't want to go to a huge school. So the school I'm going to now has 3,000 students, undergraduate in total. So I knew I wanted like a smaller school. But I wasn't sure, like I didn't know a lot about the different colleges in the US, so what my counselor did was, because he knew me pretty well, I went to talk to him a lot throughout the years. He would give me a list of, 8 or 10 colleges, and then I would go home and see, look at their websites, look at the departments, what kind of research students were doing, and I'd be like, oh, I like these ones, but not these ones. And then that's how we kind of narrowed down my list. And I think the main things I was looking for was, one, to see that there was a lot of focus on undergraduates, and that students got lots of opportunities to pursue research with professors and on their own, and a lot of involvement in extracurriculars, and also strength of campus resources like the Career Counseling Center.
Right, okay. So I guess you picked a small school because you wanted more involvement, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I could have definitely used a small school as well, and NYU is a very, very big school. Okay, now that we have a panel of different schools, I mean, can you tell us a little bit what it was like growing up in your high school? I know some of you have touched upon it, but I mean, I just want to get an idea of what the differences are like. Should we start with CIS?
Well, I just wanted to say that I got rejected from Brown twice as well. And when she was talking about all the great things about Brown, I was like, I think I could have gone to Brown over Penn, but anyway. So for CIS, yeah, I love CIS. Like for my friends, like I love CIS. Everyone knows that I love CIS. Even though I was only there for 2 years, like I made such great friends switching from UChung, and honestly, I still like CIS better than college. And I've actually thought about, like, I'm thinking about going back to teach at CIS, which might be too much for you guys, but I think what I loved about CIS, and I would encourage, if you guys are not in year 12 yet, like, consider switching to CIS. Consider applying to CIS. Like, CIS is just amazing. Yeah, sorry.
What you did like about Boston College?
Okay, so I'll get to that after I talk about CIS. So what I loved about CIS was that even though I switched in year 12, like I started talking to who would become my closest friend at CIS on like the 3rd day of school, and everyone was so welcoming and so friendly. And we have a common room for just year 12s and year 13s. And if you wanted to talk to someone, you just like took a few steps to talk to them, and everyone would just like hang out in the common room. So it was so easy to get close to people at CIS, and people were just so welcoming, so driven. I can't say for like other schools like HKS or GSIS, but I can say that CIS students are really hardworking, really driven, and just had the conversations that I had at CIS were like really deep and really meaningful, and that really influenced my decision to transfer. So that kind of ties in to why I transferred from BC. And yeah, just like after like Emma Watson's speech on feminism, like the common room would be a buzz with like conversation about that. And honestly, like yeah, and even though like almost everyone at CIS is ethnically Chinese, like everyone's had such diverse perspectives on issues like feminism, on issues like Occupy Central, and these conversations were like occurred every single day. Every single person I met, I could have a deep conversation with, and that's what I really loved about CIS. In terms of why I switched from BC, well, again, like 2 main reasons. I wanted to have more deep, meaningful conversations, and I wanted to have experience more diversity. And I think Penn catered a lot more to that. So at Penn, I think I've had a lot more deep, meaningful conversations that I've missed at CIS, and that I've missed like having at CIS. And I also, and Penn is a lot more diverse. It's like I've met my first like person from Palestine, from Ethiopia, from like Zambia, from like a lot of different places, Kazakhstan, which I didn't even know was a country before I went to Penn. I thought it was part of Russia. So I think it's so important to have a diverse student body who can bring different perspectives to the table. And I think that was my main criteria for choosing colleges, and also my main reason for transferring.
Did you see the most serious college applications? When did you start thinking about it? Was it freshman year with software? Because in medicine, I spent a lot of time. So where did you start?
Yeah. So the question was, when did I start thinking about college? So my mom is kind of like a tiger mom, but she still gives me freedom. But she's really type A, and she, I think, started getting me to think about college in around year 9, right before high school. So I think, yeah, so I just started kind of thinking about it, but I didn't really seriously consider it maybe until year 10, year 11. I think it is important because with IGCSE, I got to choose my own courses, and maybe like I think in other programs you don't have as much freedom to specialize so early. But I think it is important to think about colleges before your course selection in high school, because that could determine what you study in college, because I didn't get to take psychology before college. And if I had taken psychology before college, maybe I wouldn't have wasted so much time on physics. Not to say that physics is a bad major, but it's not something that I'm as interested in.
My high school was sort of similar to CIS from what you were saying. It was very relaxed and it was a very chilled environment. It was a very UK facing school, so most kids, well UK or Hong Kong, so most kids either go to the UK or they go to Hong Kong universities. So as a result, it's very academics oriented. So as a result, like, you could do a lot of extracurriculars if you wanted, but like, not like, if you didn't do it, it's fine. The general theme at Charlton College was academics were really emphasized, and like, not in a bad way. So like, I've heard about like some schools where like, you know, people compete very heavily about like, you know, who gets higher scores, or like everyone's just, it's really cutthroat. But at Charlton College, it's more of like a healthy sort of competitiveness. So because everyone else around you is like studying and paying attention in class, you feel like you should also, you know, pay attention and study in class. So in that sense, it was a very healthy culture in that everyone was sort of motivated and like doing well in, you know, in public exams, which is why we had 845s and IBs this year, which was the most in Hong Kong. But aside from that, it was a very chilled school. There are many opportunities if you're looking for them, but generally it was very relaxed. You never felt pressure to do anything. People were very nice. Everyone knew each other. It was a very small environment, and I really enjoyed it there.
So I went to German Swiss International School, and all in all, I had a really good experience over there. Like Cedric's school, it is really, really academic. So I remember at a parent-teacher conference once, when I just joined, my parents asked the school principal about why the school didn't have many sports teams, and the principal literally told my parents that people do not go to GSIs for sports, they go there for academics. So in that sense, if you go to German Swiss International School, you kind of have to take it into your own hands to find your interests outside of academics, which is something, so it's kind of hard, it's much harder for US students in a way, because UK schools only really care about your academics, whereas US, I really had to join as many clubs as possible in GSIs, of the few there are, so that I could write enough in my applications. Also, GSIs is quite competitive, but as in Charlton College, it is a healthy competitiveness. So when I entered GSIs, I was like above average as a student, but I wouldn't say I was really high achieving. But in 1 year of being in GSIS, I really changed in my academics. So because I always saw my classmates striving to do really well in their tests, I also changed and wanted to do well in academics as well. And also with university,